Welcome back to In the Loop. Today's pattern is this cute shamrock lap blanket, just in time for St. Patrick's Day. For this shamrock, I used about 60 yards of a sage green marled yarn that I found on Amazon that I'll note down below, and 4 skeins Bernat vintage. If you want a longer blanket, certainly you can add more vintage to each, or more yarn to each end, and it'll be longer than the 55 inches that this turns out to be. The first step is to create a slip knot with a width of 3 fingers. From that, you are going to cast on a chain of 28 stitches. If you lose count, simply flip your chain over and count the middle stitch. That's how many stitches you've actually got. And that's what we're going to be knitting from on our first row. When you think you've got 28, flip your chain over, count those middle stitches, and you're going to end up with 27 on the chain and 1 leftover loop to make 28. Leave that last loop there, and with your chain still flipped over, you're going to pull through a stitch through those middle stitches. You're going to do that 27 times to make your first row. Once that first row is finished, you're going to flip your chain back over, and we're going to start knitting in the opposite direction. Whenever you start a new row, you skip the first stitch. And what that's going to do is just create a nice edge on the blanket. It'll give it a nice woven look. So this first stitch here, I'm just going to leave that as is, and then I'm going to start knitting in the reverse direction, starting on the second stitch, going all the way to the end. Knit all the way to the end, and when we reverse direction, again leave that last stitch, or the first stitch, start on stitch number 2 and head back in the other direction. I'm going to speed this next part up while I'm doing a few more of these rows, and then I'll come back when we're ready to change to the green color. When you're ready to change color, cut your working yarn on the next to the last stitch. Take your green yarn and the cream, hold a lighter to each end to melt the plastic tubing that's inside, or that's holding all the fibers together. Press them together for a moment and then gently roll them between your fingers. That's going to create a nice strong bond, and by rubbing it together, you're going to be able to smooth out any hard edges. you're going to knit that end stitch green and then reverse direction. When you finish the row, again, cut the tail of your working yarn, and now we're going to connect that or burn that onto the white color. Now, to achieve this twisting look with the green yarn, we're going to twist the green either to the left or to the right before looping the white yarn through. So I am going to start with the first stitch on this row. I'm going to twist it to the left and then pull the yarn through. And then on the next stitch, I will twist that to the right and go back and forth all the way down to the end of the row. Now with that done, we're going to continue knitting a few more rows of the white, skipping the first stitch, and I'm going to speed this up until we get to the shamrock portion of the blanket. I use a free account on stitchfiddle.com to create my patterns, but it also has this neat feature where it helps you keep track of which row you're on and which stitch you're on. For me, as a traumatic brain injury survivor, I get confused very easily. This keeps me on track, and I only got lost like twice in the whole blanket. This row is going to contain the top of the shamrock, so this is where we're going to start getting into a lot of cutting and burning of the yarn. On the 11th stitch, you're going to change to green. Count 11 stitches, don't forget the one on the end. Knit 4 green, and then change again back to cream, and knit the rest of your row. Once you've completed your last row, you're ready to bind off and put an edge on the blanket. Grab your first and second stitch and take your working yarn, pull it through those loops, and create a new stitch. Then take that stitch, put it with the third stitch, make a new stitch with that, and so on. When you reach the end of that row, take your working yarn, tie a knot onto the last loop, cut the tail so that it's about 4 inches long, weave it up the side of your blanket, and tie another knot. That's just some extra security so nothing comes unraveled. And that's it. That is your Shamrock blanket. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. If you do this, if you end up knitting this blanket, send me a picture in my DMs. I'd love to see what you do with it. And happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.